going to college. We both did electrical engineering.
We did.
You decided to go to the Trader School, the University of Alabama.
Trader, like T-R-A-I.
Yeah, Trader.
Yeah.
Not
like
trade school.
Yeah.
Right, not...
Yeah.
What?
I like in the word. Yeah. I'm just filling it out.
This makes sense. This is why you went to Alabama.
At the time, and I think Tennessee used to do this like in the 90s or something. I think Alabama was just trying to get like as many intelligent people into their specifically engineering program.
Is it because before there were not very many intelligent people going there? Welcome to the first episode of the Rome's Room podcast. I'm your host, Jerome, and this is my room. I know what we're all thinking. Do we really need another 26-year-old making a podcast? And I'm here to tell you, yes. Yes, we do. Today, I've got my co-host. My notes here say the almost PhD, the not quite there yet, but being in school for 10 years, Jared Helton.
How's it going? Thank you for the applause.
Yeah, we gotta pretend like there's a studio audience there.
Yeah. What do you mean? There's one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, man. What's going on?
Nothing much. Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July.
Yeah.
We got, for the 4th of July, we've got great Modelo.
Yeah.
A great sponsor of America.
The number one selling beer now, right?
I think so.
In America?
It is the number one selling beer in America. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't really understand the whole Bud Light thing. Felt a little strange to me, but
yeah, I was removed from it.
I also never drank Bud Light.
It also never tasted good.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So the Modelo's at least.
I never drank Bud Light, so I didn't really follow. But Modelo's a great beer.
They are. They're good beers.
Personal favorite is Corona.
Oh yeah, you've been on that for a while.
Yeah, man. I used to drink a lot of Corona Light like back in the day because I was watching the figure a little bit.
Yeah. Those extra 15 calories.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, and then I don't know. People always drink Corona Extra, but like it was just like a little too like hoppy. Like what's the word? Dank. People use that word these days?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
I don't know why you're asking me. We're not going to use that word.
Okay. But no, I used to drink a lot of Corona Light, but then they came out with like Premier a couple years ago.
Now the Premiers are good.
Premier's really good.
Yes. For some reason, they should all taste the same, basically, but they don't.
But for whatever reason, I feel like you go to like a restaurant or a bar or whatever that's got like draft beers. They never have Corona. It's like so common for them to have Modelo or Pacifico.
And like Dos Equis.
Dos Equis.
Yeah.
But they never have Corona.
Yeah.
So I've more recently become more of a Modelo drinker.
I've never been really sold on these kind of glasses. They just, I don't,
Explain.
It's just like so abnormal compared to any other glass. Or any other, like, you drink, the cans or whatever, they're the same every single time. But the glasses are usually the 12-ounce, normal.
Right. These are 12, are they not? They are
I
12.
think so.
They're just odd shape.
Just with like the weird like fat body.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I do agree with you. I hate the little foil on the top.
It is annoying as hell.
It's so annoying.
It's really annoying.
It never like clean breaks.
And you end up having to just peel it off consistently or just spit it out of your mouth half the time.
I agree. Don't leave that in the studio.
Test.
Don't leave that in the studio.
Yeah, I won't. I'll get rid of it.
Okay. Well, so for those of you that don't know what this podcast is about, which is all of you because this is the first episode, we're going to be talking to a lot of ordinary people. Jared, very ordinary.
Very.
And just about like the cool, extraordinary things that they've done in their life. So tell me what cool, extraordinary thing you've done in your life.
Absolutely nothing. I don't know why I'm on this podcast. No, I mean, we can do like a little bit of like background. Because it's the first episode. You got to give people
background.
Like, why am I even...
Why are you the first person to be on this podcast?
I asked myself the exact same question.
Honestly, it was because I couldn't get Kevin Hart on here.
Because I was available.
Right.
Yeah, but that's how it goes. No, so, we can do a little bit of background.
Yeah, Jared and I, along with our probably call it 5 or 6 closest friends, we've been like really close friends since high school.
Certainly high school.
We've known each other for a very long time. I mean, we're both 26, you're 27 now.
Yeah.
Or, 27.
Yeah.
And so we've known each other for, probably, I don't know, close to 20 years at this point because we went to like elementary school together.
Yeah, I know that, so like there were the different like pieces of the group that maybe solidified a little bit more in college. So I don't know, because I didn't like play soccer, which was like mathematics. I wasn't in orchestra, which was like you, Tristan.
We got close kind of later in high school.
We did. Yeah.
I used to always have these crazy, like not crazy, just sleepovers at my house with 5, 6 guys, and everyone would come over.
For our high school standard, probably crazy, but not actually. But.
Do you remember? Do you remember the Harlem Shake?
I remember of it. And I
Do you
remember
when we filmed a Harlem Shake?
Yes. And I remember I don't know if the music just stopped or if somebody paused it.
Yeah, no. So the Harlem Shake, for those of you that don't know, which is like anyone under the age of probably call it 26.
Yeah.
It was this trend that went around like when Vine was a thing.
Oh, I miss
right?
Vine. Yeah.
And it was this like beat, and it would be like one person that was just like dressed up super ridiculous, and everyone else is like acting normal in the background. And then when the beat dropped, it would be like, it would cut and everyone would be going crazy.
Yeah.
And we decided, we want to get on this trend. See, I've wanted to be a YouTuber for a long time.
You've been chasing trends all your life.
Chasing dreams.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to get on this trend. Let me get all my friends to do the Harlem Shake. Right. So we had one friend, his name's and he was the crazy guy in the middle. He was, I'm pretty sure he was just like in his boxers, no shirt.
He might have had like a mask on.
He had a Santa Claus hat covering his face.
Oh, nice.
And he was like doing the thing. We were all acting normal in the background. Then once the beat drops, we're all going crazy. Everyone's doing weird things.
Yeah.
There's one person scandally holding a teddy bear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was a lot.
There was a lot going on. And then in the middle of all of this, my dad walks upstairs.
Yeah. You didn't hear him at all.
I didn't hear him at all.
Yeah.
And you were
in character.
Whoever was filming the video paused the music, paused the video,
everything,
and everyone was just like,
frozen.
Yeah, frozen in time.
Rigid.
And I'm over here. I had a sleeping bag just completely over my body, so I couldn't see anything.
And you're still going.
Like, yeah, I'm like still going. I'm like turning around, like acting like, guys, what happened to the music? What happened? Do we have to start over? And slowly, my dad lifts the sleeping bag over my head.
Flair for the dramatic.
And I just, from the inside of the sleeping bag, everything goes from dark to like I slowly see it, and I come face to face with my dad.
Yeah.
And he just goes, "What are you doing?" And just smacks me in the side of the head.
Stop. Yeah, whatever you're doing.
He was just like, he was just like, "We can hear you downstairs. Please stop."
Yeah, and it's just, that was the end of it.
Yep.
That was it.
And I was just like, okay, no more Harlem Shakes. Let's retire this YouTube dream.
Yeah, it should be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's like basically how we know each other. That's how we got close.
Not the Harlem Shake, but everything behind that. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
And so then going to college, we both did electrical engineering.
We did.
You decided to go to the Trader School, the University of Alabama.
Trader, like Trai.
Yeah, Trader.
Yeah.
Not like trade school.
Yeah.
Right, not,
what? I like in the word. Yeah. I'm just filling it out.
This makes sense. This is why you went to Alabama.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, go because it was free for me.
Yeah, explain this to me.
Yeah.
So we're in college, or we're in high school, we're applying for schools.
Yeah.
What all schools did you apply to?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't apply to that many because I knew, so my sister, more of the reason I went to Alabama was because my sister went to Alabama before me.
I actually did not
so my
know
sister,
that.
5 years older than me, so she went, so I knew everything, and she got, when she was applying, she applied Alabama, Tennessee, like all the other schools. She also applied to like South Carolina and some other like basically SEC schools.
Okay.
And then she just got like nothing from anybody else. And I mean, she was smart. She had a good like score on her ACT, good grades, whatever. But Alabama just threw money at her.
Yeah.
And so she went to Alabama.
They're known to do that.
Yeah.
I've heard that they throw money at their football players too.
Well, now everybody does. So you want to get into NIL? Let's save that for later. But at the time, and I think Tennessee used to do this like in the 90s or something. I think Alabama was just trying to get like as many like intelligent people into their specifically engineering program.
Is it because before there were not very many intelligent people going there?
Before they didn't have the prestige. So they didn't have like, people were making decisions of like, do I go to this like really technical school? Like, do I go to Illinois?
Right.
Do I go to Virginia Tech? Or do I go to Alabama? Like, and Alabama should not be in that conversation.
Right.
But Illinois and Virginia Tech are like 40 grand, 50 grand out of state.
Right.
And you have to get into their engineering schools, which in and of itself is a whole, you had to score near perfect scores on ACT, SATs, whatever. So Alabama was just like, if you had a 31 on your ACT, you went to the engineering college, they gave you full tuition.
All right. Why did you guys not give me money? Because I actually applied to Alabama.
You did. I tried to get everybody to apply to Alabama.
I know.
And nobody listened to me.
Actually, no, I'm joking, Alabama. It's okay. No hard feelings.
Yeah.
I actually did get in. They promised me similar scholarships to what they promised to you, but then I, at the time, didn't have my green card, so they were like, oh, psych.
Oh, damn, really?
Yeah, yeah.
That blows. And they missed out.
That was actually why I ended up going to UT because I applied to Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia Tech, and the exact same thing happened at all three schools. It was they promised me a bunch of scholarships, and then because I didn't have the green card at the time, they took all the scholarships away, and then Tennessee even took my scholarships away. They took the government ones away. They well, actually no, they took all of them away, and then
sucks.
the first semester I just had to pay out of pocket, but it's like to out-of-state schools versus like in-state.
Right. I'm glad you didn't go to Georgia Tech. If you went to Alabama, it would have been fine, but Georgia Tech...
Why? Why do you hate Georgia Tech?
I don't know. It's not that well, first of all, my family has a Virginia Tech background, so that's why I hate Georgia Tech. But I don't know. I mean, what nucleus would you have had there? Because that was the hardest thing in college, was like getting your feet, like getting your group. Yeah. And I feel like you had to have like one or two people going into it.
But you didn't know... Well, actually, that's not true. Our high school sent like 6, 7 people.
Yeah, one or two people. Yeah.
Not one or two.
No, but like one or two like really close people going into it. Because like Zach, I didn't really know like that well going into it.
Until you got there.
Exactly.
Got it.
That was... But anyway, so the reason for Alabama was they just threw money at me.
Yeah.
But I think I applied to like Tennessee. I even threw like Tennessee Tech, and then I applied to like Virginia Tech as well. And it really came down to Virginia Tech or Alabama, because my dad and one of his brothers went to Virginia Tech. Yeah. They're from like the Bristol, Johnson City area on the Virginia side.
Got it.
And so that's why they went to Virginia Tech.
Could have been a Hokie.
Could have been a Hokie. Yeah, could have been. But it was just, I mean, they just to get into the engineering college they're like, you should be happy with that. They don't throw as many scholarships around. And Alabama was literally saying, you don't have to pay for anything.
We will give you everything.
Yeah, and they were giving out like $2,500 stipend for 4 years.
I remember this.
Yeah, they were throwing everything and the kitchen sink at you because they were just trying to get their prestige up.
And this was like in their like prime of like they're winning national championships left and right in football.
They got money coming in from every direction.
They got so much money down there.
Yeah. And Richard Shelby had just gotten like $100 million to build up like campus facilities. Richard Shelby?
Who's Richard Shelby?
He was a senator for Alabama.
Okay.
I think he actually retired recently.
Why would I know that?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying
I know it's the 4th of July, but like...
You have to take me on, like, my word.
Yeah.
I could be lying.
You could be lying.
I don't think I am, but...
I would not know if you were.
Yeah, and I think he got, like, a bunch of money to build facilities.
Yeah.
And, like, the same facilities that, like, I work in are, like, there's a building named, like, Shelby Hall. Okay. And so we call it, like, the Shelby Quad. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, like, the buildings I work in were because he brought in that money... Basically, like, when my sister was graduating in 2012, they were finishing the buildings.
Okay.
And so they had brought in all this money to build these facilities. We're getting all these kids who had no reason to actually choose Alabama, but they were like, it's free, so I'll do it. Like, I remember there was one guy I went to school with over the course of like 4 years, and his name was he was just brilliant. Like, he was the mix of, there's hardworking people and there's people who just kind of get it naturally. Yeah. He was like both. So he would he would read something and understand it, but he would still read like the entire textbook. Yeah. Like, read the entire textbook. And that's crazy. He should not have gone to Alabama. He should have gone to like Ivy League schools. Right. And now he's getting his PhD program at Cornell in electrical engineering. Wow. So like, why did Alabama even get this guy for 4 years in a master's? Like, he's 2 degrees from Alabama.
And like, once you're in master's, PhD level, well, okay, ignore the PhD for a second. Once you're at like master's level, you're like doing a lot of research and like you're like doing work for the university. Right. So
you're the reason they're getting like.
You're saying they are paying this guy, like, not underpaying, because that's what every university does. Right. But they are essentially underpaying what a like private company would pay him. Yeah. To get like his work, his research under a professor. For in exchange giving him a master's.
Yep. And it raises, and like specifically in engineering, there's like certain criteria that you have to hit for like amount of like money that you bring in before you become
as a student.
No. Like at a university level.
Oh, got it.
Before there's like different tiers of like research institutions. So like the ones that you would think of when you think of like research, which from like an engineering, it would be like an MIT, but like the Duke UNCs of the world as well. Yep. They're like, I think it's like tier 1 research. So they bring in X amount of money, they graduate X amount of grad students, but they're like the top level. So Alabama, before all of this like recruiting surge, was not a tier 1 research institute, and like now they are.
Really?
So it's like paid off in that regard.
What is like Tennessee on that scale?
Tier 1, yeah.
Really?
Tennessee is also Tennessee's a very good research institute. You had a little bit of experience.
I had a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a ton. I would say my sister actually did a lot more research at Tennessee than I did. I did work under a professor for a little bit, but
I remember that.
it was like small things, and I really didn't do that much, to be honest with you. But no, so we both did engineering in college, and okay, I'd love to know kind of getting to graduation time frame, right? You have this like, I don't know, the culmination of basically 16 years of your life.
Your entire life.
Yeah. Is coming to this major decision.
Yeah.
And you have, not you, the royal you.
Right, yeah.
You have a bunch of your friends that are graduating, have job offers lined up, and are ready to leave and start their adult life. And then you also have the potential option to continue your education, go get your master's degree, whatever. Yeah. And I kind of struggled with this a little bit too.
Yeah.
I remember when I was graduating, my big thing was all my friends were graduating. They had jobs lined up, right? And I had an offer from a local company. I don't know if I should like say names of any of these people, these stories that I'm telling.
Yeah, maybe we should take that back a little
bit. Yeah. But I had an offer from a company.
Yeah.
And it was one that I had like worked for prior, like did an internship with and stuff like that. It was a little lower. Well, not even lower. It was like average in terms of like their starting salary, right? But in my head, I was like, okay, I can go get a master's degree in electrical engineering. Tennessee offers this. Also, I've been trying to say Tennessee a lot instead of UT because people keep fucking getting. Yeah, dude. Every fucking person gets on to me about like, oh, UT is Texas. UT is Tennessee.
That lines up for Texas people. Yeah, not getting their particular recognition.
I'm talking everyone. I'm talking people that I went to UNC with, like people that I worked with.
Yeah.
Like everyone thinks UT is Texas, and I'm like,
to be fair, you got to give it up to Texas's PR program. Yeah, they're just,
well, yeah, fair.
Their flag is the most recognized. Their school gets recognized all the time.
Dude.
Yeah. For no good reason.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
No, for no good reason.
It's like, it's a half truth.
But so I was like up against this this average salary.
Yeah.
And, you know, potentially doing a 5 years undergrad plus master's program to get a master's in electrical engineering.
I've forgotten about this.
And I kind of was leaning the master's route. I actually applied to a bunch of schools. Speaking of Texas, I applied to Texas Electrical Engineering Program, master's.
A good one.
And at the time, it was like number 10 in the nation.
Yeah, they're solid.
And I got in.
Yeah.
And then I had this like...
Didn't you also, like, with your family, didn't you go, like, look? Like, didn't you go, like, visit?
Not Texas, I don't think.
But you jumped around. Like, you actually made the effort. I don't know if your family was just, like, vacationing. But I thought I remembered you going to different places.
I think you might be thinking of when I applied for MBAs, because we went and toured, like, Stanford.
That might be it. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Actually?
I do feel like you went to Texas.
I don't think I ever went to Texas. I definitely went and toured Stanford for the master's program.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Maybe you did it for both.
I don't think I went to Texas.
I don't think you went to Texas either.
But I definitely went to Stanford. Yeah. I definitely went to Stanford. I did not get accepted at Stanford, I should say.
I mean, it's...
but no, I was like really considering it. And I remember the ultimate like turning point for me was I'd been accepted. I had decided I was going to Texas for my master's program. And I was like looking for summer internships. And I remember it was this final round interview at Pepsi. And the guy looked me across the table and he was like, Jerome, you could graduate right now and you could come work for us as an undergrad electrical engineering graduate. And we would pay you $75,000 a year. I don't remember what state that was in, but $75,000 a year.
Yeah.
And this was like in 2018, so 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was like, knowing that, why do you want to go get your master's degree out of state, pay, I don't know, call it $60,000 to $100,000 probably.
Yeah.
To then come back to potentially work for us and only start off making like 90 or 95.
Yeah.
That was his question.
Yeah.
And in that interview, first off, I bombed the interview because I didn't have a good answer. I was just like, oh, well, I've always
those
thought
first
I was
interviews.
Get a
you always
master's.
look back and you're like, ugh.
And like it was bad. I bombed the interview. Did not get that job offer either.
Yeah.
But it made me like go home and like really think about it. And I was like, why am I doing a master's degree? And it came down to when I started undergrad, the reason I picked electrical engineering was because I always knew I was going to be an engineer. My dad's an engineer. My older sister's an engineer. Like, it was never a question in my mind of, like, what am I going to study in school?
But you were always more motivated by, like, maybe finance is too broad of a category, but...
Business in general, I agree.
You did, like, the stuff at the high school where you did the competition.
Yeah, DECA.
Yeah.
100%. Because by that point in time, like, when I was approaching college, like, my dad was, like, a manager and stuff. And so I had a little, like, just conversations with him, like, I had a little bit of understanding on, like, the business side of engineering, you know?
Yeah.
And that always intrigued me way more. So my thought was always, oh, I'm going to go get my engineering degree, I'm going to go get my MBA, and then I'm going to go back to engineering and be, like, a manager, like an engineering manager.
Right.
But then I was like, serious. But so it was never a question of, like, what are you going to study? It was always engineering. It was more of what kind of engineering.
Right.
Right. And my, like, rebellious phase was like, oh, my dad did mechanical engineering. My sister is, like, doing biomedical. Like, I'm not going to do either of those. I'm going to do electrical.
Yeah.
That was my, like, rebellion or whatever.
Yeah. What an interesting rebellion.
Yeah. But then, so I get to this phase and I was like, oh, shit. Like, all of my friends are graduating. They're about to be making, $65,000 to $70,000 a year.
Yeah.
I had a couple that were going to Eastman, where I ended up actually working. They were starting off making 77, and I was like, and I had an internship offer at Eastman that I'd already accepted.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, should I just go to Eastman and I'll be making $77,000 a year? Like, instead of going, net $100K in the hole for a master's degree.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, I think I should do that. Like, why am I doing this master's degree? I have no idea.
Yeah.
I think I'm just doing it because it's, like, the right next step.
Yeah.
And then I ended up going to Eastman. That was a really long-winded story. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No.
But what was, like, your thought process getting there?
It's interesting when you were telling that story. I forgot about the different parallels that we have because, like, you say you rebelled against, like, your dad and, like, your, like, family, and instead of doing mechanical, you went electrical.
Yeah.
I had, like, I didn't rebel, but I had a similar thing where I was like, my dad's mechanical, so I know I'm not going to be mechanical. And then there were just, like, in, like, some of the classes that we had in high school, we did, like, a little bit of, like, electric stuff.
Yeah.
So I knew I liked that a little bit more. So I just went into that. But I remember you talking about the masters, and when you were saying, like, a lot of your friends had jobs lined up, and you didn't have certainty about what direction you wanted to move in.
Yeah.
Mostly because the company that you were talking about kind of lowballed you a little bit for the experience.
I felt that way.
Level. Yeah.
I felt that way. Plus, like, I knew Eastman was paying. I knew Eastman was paying some of my friends that were going there literally $10,000 more. And when I came back and negotiated, and I was like, "Hey, here are, like, all of my skills that are super relevant to you guys.
Right.
I think I should be getting paid a little bit more."
Yeah.
They came back with, "Well, no, this is just what we start our starting engineers off at."
Yeah.
And I had, like, interned there for, like, a year and a half, if not more.
And I remember you were doing, like, actual work. You weren't just pushing paper.
Right. I made, like, some production code
like
for
the
them that, like,
thing,
like, automated some stuff that, like, went out on their production lines
Right.
and whatnot. And so it was one of those situations where I was like, oh, okay, you guys just want an engineer. You don't want Jerome.
Right.
And
they didn't recognize the value of having, like, a known quantity.
Exactly.
As well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so anyway.
Yeah. So when you were talking about that, that was basically my experience as well. I just never had the sit down, or when I had the sit down conversation about, like, masters first going out and doing anything, I didn't have as, like, a severe reaction towards, like, oh, I could make X amount doing whatever.
Right.
Because I remember, I think I was a little bit of, like, a slave to my timeline, because a lot of my friends at Alabama were, like, super well, like, they were really good at, like, networking and getting out in front of things super early. Some of it was, like, neurotic, where they just didn't want to be, even in December, not having a job.
Right.
But a lot of it was, like, I mean, you knew somebody at Eastman. Maybe I won't throw as many names around, but you knew a guy at Eastman that I went to college with.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and, he's always, like, very...
Like, knew the next thing.
Exactly.
6 months in advance.
Has his life planned out all the time. And it's a really good skill of his. And so he had his offer from Eastman in, like, September.
Damn.
And I knew...
I got mine, like, in, like, April.
Yeah. But you were doing the internship, and you just turned it into the job,
That's
right?
true. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So
that is true.
He had his job. A couple other guys in, like, his, like, extended friend group had jobs. I knew, like, I knew other people who were staying at Alabama and like knew they were staying at Alabama for either an MBA or for master/PhD. And of the 6 people around me, and I know like one of the smartest people I know, she was getting a job at a really good company in Huntsville and like the Redstone
engineering
area.
job.
Yeah. And she had like she had co-op there.
Huntsville, NASA?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, it's not NASA. It's like another company up there, but it's a really good like I forget the specifics of the company, but I think it's like they merge like hardware and software, so they do like a lot of firmware designs.
Interesting.
For things. Anyways, in the Redstone area, she had co-op there a couple times. She, outstandingly smart, knew she had a job that she was going to have after she ended. So like of the 6 or 7 people that I was the closest with at Alabama, all of them either had job offers in September or knew what they were doing in like grad school.
Yeah.
They already knew they were in grad school. They were already taking classes.
Yeah.
So like you talk about like the 5-year Tennessee program. We had
Similar
it was called AMP, which was like the Accelerated Master's Program.
Yep.
And you could start taking master's classes at an undergraduate level.
Same exact thing.
Yeah. So I knew people who had already been doing that. So they're already getting like credit towards their master's kind of deal. And I remember I had an interview where I bombed severely. And it was like in August, I think. And it was a great engineering company, but it was like it was almost like an independent branch where they might have been like absorbed by this larger company. So they were just doing their own thing. Okay. They had just a little office space in a big building.
And you had an offer with that kind of independent?
I did not have an offer with them. No, I went and interviewed with them.
Okay.
Because I had like a friend who was a year above me who like threw a couple names. Like we were in like a professional organization together, and she threw like my name and another guy's name out there to this company of like, these would be good people if you guys wanted to reach out and do interviews with. Mm-hmm. And so my friend was like a week ahead of me, and he interviewed at their like their corporate center.
Yeah.
And it was like all fun and games. It was a PowerPoint about yourself, trying to understand you within the culture, no technical stuff, because I think this person's recommendation carried a lot of weight. And so that's what I was thinking going into it. But their like corporate center was in like Kansas City, and I was interviewing in Dallas because I had a few experiences in Dallas, and they were like, you could do Kansas City, Dallas, or like Chattanooga. And I didn't want to be as close as Chattanooga. Kansas City wasn't very appealing, but I knew Dallas. So I went out there, and I was doing the interview, and they were basically a small branch. They were looking for like a 5-year experience, specific electrical engineer. Like I would say they were looking for somebody who had like multiple internships. If it was just a recent grad, multiple internships doing like this specific job. Yeah. I hadn't even taken the class yet. Yeah. I was like in the class at the moment in the August interview. So I just bombed. Damn. Yeah, I have never like felt as shitty after that moment.
It's crazy because like all these jobs and stuff that are like looking, it feels like it's always up against you, right? Mm. Like in the sense of everyone wants someone that's got 20 years experience in doing some specific super specialized thing. Yeah. And that's what they want. And it's like, okay, well, I can't get experience because no one will hire me because I don't have experience.
Take a chance on me.
Right. You need that one person to take a chance.
Yeah.
And then it's like, once you can prove yourself. Yeah. Because like, I mean, we're smart people. Yeah. Like we're hardworking people.
That is true.
That's like, honestly, for any job, I personally think being hardworking is like more important than like the intelligence.
I agree.
But it's like, once you get that first job, once you get someone to like take a chance on you, you're set.
Yeah, and you learn everything. That's why I agreed with my friend's interview where they were just trying to understand like him within the culture. Yeah. Because that made sense to me. Because any undergrad coming out of college, unless they've interned for you or have done that specific job before, there's going to be a 3-month period where you're going to have to train them. Yeah. You just have to. Your particular software, your particular whatever. Yep. So like with this company, and they were so like the boss was a hard ass, and he was asking questions, and I just didn't know the answers, and I didn't bullshit him. He asked a question, and he said, "How would you do this?" Right. And I said, "I don't know, but
I will find out."
I was like, I tried to give like an answer that was like, I don't know, but I know this, and I know the other. I have to assume I tried to give like a good answer, but I started with I don't know. Yeah. And he was just a hard ass, but all the other guys were so nice. Like after the interview, they were very nice to me. They took me out to lunch. But I remember after that interview, so that was like the one interview where I thought I was going to get a job offer in August with like all of my friends. They never like responded to me again. So in like October and November, I started talking to my friends, and I had like 3 interviews lined up at like 3 different companies in like the Georgia, South Carolina area. And I was talking to some of my friends, and I was like, I have these interviews, but I had the fear of the first interview. I was like, I know they're probably going to go well, and I know I could get a job at one of these 3 places. If I can't get a job out of 4 interviews, I just need to quit. I just need to. I just can't.
Hey, listen, but you only need the one.
Exactly.
You only need the one.
So in my head, I was like, I know I can get one of these, but.
And you know what the crazy thing that people never talk about is like, you could be the smartest person in the room on paper. You can have the best interview, like in person, whatever. And that doesn't necessarily mean you'll get the job offer.
Right.
There's always some amount of like connections. Like I know this person who knows this person who knows you.
Right.
There's also some amount of, oh, we think you're honestly a little too smart, so you won't fit in with our team here. Right. There's like a little bit of that. Like people don't talk about that. People just assume that like because you're the smartest, best, brightest, whatever, that you're going to get every job that you've ever applied for.
Yeah.
Which is not the case.
Yeah, and like the best advice is just throw as many things out there and see what sticks on the wall. Because some of the smartest people I've known, they either like got into it early, where companies like if you intern for a company, they're going to be a lot more forgiving than just a job interview. Because a job interview is like you're supposed to have a set of skills that are going to be used for this company. But like if a sophomore comes to you, they don't know anything.
They don't know anything.
A senior doesn't really know.
They don't even know how to talk to you, really.
Exactly. They're not a real person yet.
Right.
So, like, but you can mold that person over the course of like a couple internships, which is like the best advice that I would have ever gotten is like try to do internships like as soon as possible. Yeah. Like sophomore year kind of deal. Because then they will be really lenient with you, 1. 2, you will learn skills that will be applicable to any other place. And then 3, you can figure out if that is a company you would even want to work for. Yep. Because a lot of times you go into it with like rainbow colored or rose tinted glasses. You see rainbows everywhere and you're like, this is going to be the greatest place ever. And then you start working 9 to 5 and you're like, I hate everything about this. Right. Anyways, so, but when you go into the job interviews like that, like everything's like a human enterprise. So yeah, you want it to be just like skill based, but there's all these things about like even the bias that goes with the resumes. Anyways, we're getting a little off topic, but I was sitting at a point where all my friends had jobs. I did not have a job offer. And I was talking to a couple people. One of them was staying for her PhD. And the other one had done like undergraduate research before. And they both were like, if you're really this worried about it, like just do undergraduate research with like this professor who's looking for like undergraduate research who we had all taken classes with him before. Right. We all liked him. I liked him. And they were like, just go talk to him, do undergraduate research, and then you can just cover your bases just in case these interviews like don't go well. Right. So for me, it was kind of a similar situation to you about like I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I started doing undergraduate research with this guy, and I ended up enjoying I liked him. I thought he was smarter than most people I've ever known, but he wasn't like every now and again, he'd be kind of a dick about it. So this isn't the same person that you currently work for? Correct. Okay. Correct. He wasn't a dick about it, but like he would come off... But he was. He was just... It was almost like he couldn't understand why you didn't understand that. Because he came from like a really good like technical university. Like if you asked questions on like... Yeah. He would almost be like, did you not learn... Like, did you really not learn this? Kind of deal. So, but once he would just get over that, he would do a really good job of like correcting... or whatever, which is the point of undergraduate research. But so I started doing that, just kind of liked it, and I ended up going to those interviews, and they went fine. Like I got job offers from all the other different interviews, so it would have been fine. But I just like was doing it with him, and for the AMP program, you had to like enroll as a master's student. You couldn't just like dip your toes in there. Like you had to enroll masters, and my interviews weren't until January, and I wanted to get the credits if I was going to try to get ahead of it. So I just applied, got accepted, and started the master's program in the spring. And I remember in my head, I had a number, I think at the time, which seems low now that I think about it, but in my head, I was like 70. Like 70 is my number. Like if I can't hit 70 at these places, and they were not in like big cities. They were kind of out there a little bit. I don't think that's low. I think like 5 years ago. Yeah. And like directly out of undergrad. Well, I guess it depends on the city.
It certainly depends on the city.
Right.
But for where we were at, if you wanted to stay local or if you specifically wanted to come back to Tennessee or whatever, then I think about 70 is probably about right.
In my mind, and I was like, in my mind, that's the number. So you were trying to figure out like why you wanted to do your master's.
Yeah.
In my mind, like that was the line in the sand. It's like if nobody can offer me $70K, I'll stay here for another couple of years.
What if they gave you 69? No. 69.5.
No. They could offer me 69,999.
Really?
You were 70
or nothing?
That was the line in the sand. Because you have to draw it somewhere.
I mean, you're right, you do. But
then if I feel like
what I always do is I draw that line in the sand, and then whenever things come in just slightly lower, I'm just like,
you gotta have
whatever. Like
that's why it's there.
Yeah, but like
can't wait for the water to come in and wash it away, and then move up a little bit more. I do. Yeah, but here's the thing. So that was, and I guess maybe fortunately nobody came close enough. I think I got like 67 at one place, 65 at another place.
Yeah, I think that was like about right.
Right, and I couldn't rationalize it, but I think you had like to sit down and talk with yourself.
Yeah.
And you were like, why am I doing the master's?
Right.
My dad sat me down for me, and he like had a whole like list. He was like,
he did the pros and cons.
Yes, and he was like, here's the pros and cons. Like, you're 2 years without salary, so making 60, that's $120,000 that you just lose.
Right.
If you're trying to make it up with a master's, you might get 10,000 more, 15,000 more.
It's true.
So you have to work like 10 years just to catch up. But now, so like he gave this whole spiel.
So he was pushing you towards going to the workforce.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I eventually was just like, I just want to do this.
You were like, I'm too smart for $70,000.
No, I just didn't have a good...
No, that's what it was.
No. Well, I was like, I feel like I'm worth more than that.
That's what it was for me. I was like, I feel like I'm worth more than...
worth 70?
Worth more than 67,000.
Yeah, I don't know, in some like, I don't know, self-centered vision, I was like, I feel like I'm worth more than 70,000. And I know with the masters coming out of it, you can make, like the Pepsi guy, like you can make 90.
Yeah.
And that feels more worthwhile.
You're right. Definitely as a 21, 22-year-old, when you hear someone say, hey, if you stay in school for 2 more years, you can come out making 90.
Yeah.
That just sounds so good. But I think your dad does have a point of you're foregoing $130,000.
And if you don't know why you're doing the masters and you're not just stubborn like I am, I mean, you shouldn't do it.
Right. You should only do it if you have a specific reason, you enjoy the research, whatever it is, you have a goal.
Yeah. So I just stayed for the masters. And I ended up doing that. And another thing with the masters is if you're not ready for the real world, pretty good way to learn the skills.
Yeah.
Like if you're just on the fence about it, it's like at least in my experience for like a technical degree, pretty good way to learn a few more skills.
Now, was that a 1 or 2 year degree?
It was 2.
Okay.
Now I knew.
So you did a full master's. You didn't do the AMP program.
No. I did the AMP, but it still took 2 years.
Really?
Yeah. You can.
Isn't the purpose
you can push it really hard. Like you can push it and do 1. I knew people who did that. So you could do that, but because there's 2 different kinds, at least to my knowledge, at Alabama at least, there's 2 different kinds of masters. There's a non-thesis option and a thesis option.
Okay.
So the non-thesis, you just take classes, you get your degree, you're done. The thesis option, you take a few less classes, or there's less requirements for it, and you actually write a thesis. And you pick a topic, and you do intro, lit review, theoretical background, the boards you made, and the testing you did.
Okay.
And that's it's a 80 to 120 page document.
Is that worth any more? What's the difference here? In the non-thesis version, do you just have to take more classes to make up for that?
So I think for us, it was 30 hours non-thesis option, 24 hours thesis option, but you had to do 6 hours of thesis research, but
it's not that different though.
No, but some professors were very particular about you're not going to do a master's. And I kind of agree with it if you're not going to do a master's and never run a test or never show that you learned anything during this process.
Yeah.
Because I mean, in undergrad, you could get an A in a class and not know what the hell you actually learned.
That is literally exactly me. Is I did very well in my undergrad classes. I consider myself to be a good student.
Yeah. I agree.
That being said, I got into the workforce and I truly was like, what the fuck am I doing?
Right.
I have no idea. And we did labs, simple labs and stuff in undergrad, of course. Nothing like what you would do at the master's PhD
But
level.
you're always just doing enough to just get the grade.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the whole point.
Honestly, that has been my life mantra.
Yeah.
Is I've described this recently, which let me know your thoughts. I have done the bare minimum to be excellent. And what I mean by that is like in high school, for example, right? If an A was a 93 or a 90, I'm getting a 90.1.
Yeah.
I'm getting a 93.1.
Just crossing that line in the center.
Yeah, but, you know, people generally tend to think like if you get all A's in a class or in a semester or whatever, you're like an excellent student.
Yeah.
And so I'm like...
I would say that, yeah.
I am teetering that line of I want to do the bare minimum amount of work to be excellent. You know? And that's kind of like
fair mindset.
Yeah, like that's kind of because it's not like I'm just like giving up and like you know getting like really low grades or like you know not trying at all. Yeah. I'm certainly like putting in the effort. Yeah. But I don't want to. I have never been the type to be like I want to get a 100 in every single class because I want to prove that I'm the best. I don't care about that.
Yeah, it's borderline neurotic.
Yeah. And so when you're doing these like undergraduate labs and stuff, like again, you're doing that like bare minimum. You're following the instructions that are already written out for you.
Yep.
Which I assume at the master's PhD level, that's not necessarily the case all the time. No. Or ever.
Ever.
And so, like, yeah, you're just doing what you're told to then get the grade that you want.
Right.
You know, and I'm sure it's very different.
Yeah, and I think like the most important thing that like I learned in the master's was like, it's basically like everything you learn, it's funny how it is. It's everything you learn in the undergrad. Like they tell you like, this is the law, this is how it goes, this is what happens when you do these things in this order. You get to the master's level and they're like, hey, you remember the law that we told you that when you do the things in this order, this is what's going to happen? Yeah, all of that comes with a huge caveat, which is like you think like a little bit of like electrical talk, like you think a capacitor is a capacitor, but it has equivalent series resistance and it has sometimes equivalent parallel inductance or equivalent series inductance. And sometimes you think an inductor is just an inductor, but it has equivalent parallel capacitance. So it's an inductor for a little bit of a window.
You lost me, dude.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm an electrical engineer, and you lost me.
But you haven't used the trade in a while. But yeah.
The point being, when you graduate from undergrad with a degree and then you start working, there are a lot of people that are just good at the classes and don't know what the fuck's going on.
And you legitimately think you know, and it might be the case depending on the internship or depending on like your experience.
Yep.
You might actually know what you know. But I would say the majority of people, you think you know what you know, and you don't.
Well, you know, like, I had a lot of friends that I worked with at Eastman who came in, you know, if you want to say like, for example, if you want to say like GPA is like the end all be all and like, you know, that's the differentiator between someone being excellent and not excellent or whatever. Yeah. If that's the scale, then I had a lot of friends that were on paper supposedly like quote unquote worse than me, you know? But that being said, they had like, you know, done like a lot of like electrical work with their dad like when they were younger or like wired up like a ceiling fan or something like that.
Had a great internship.
Yeah. And so they started at Eastman, same job, same role, and it's like they knew like a little bit more than I felt like I knew.
Right.
Because they had in practice done what we were actually trying to do.
Yep.
You know, and I had not had that experience and I was just like, I feel like I've been completely thrown to the sharks here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think something else that's like important with the first, like whatever, basically whatever you do after the undergrad, what's important is like learning, almost like learning how to learn. And it's a little more simpler than I just can't find the words for it right now. But like in the experience that I've had in the master's is like something doesn't work.
Yep.
And it's like, so now what? And it's the same thing with a job where it's like you're on a project and like you can't make it work.
Yeah.
You can't, but like there's nobody who's going to come behind you and give you a C because you didn't make it work and then you move on to the next thing.
100%.
Like you have to make it work. And it's the same thing. I think that I push back, I'm not saying that you did this, but like other people in my life have said this before where like, they're like, oh, if you go out into the work field, you'll get experiences and you'll develop skills that you don't get in graduate school. I disagree with that. I think a good graduate program should teach you the flaws in like the theory that you learned the same way that you think like you make a design and it's going to be perfect, but you go out into the real world and they're like, how are you going to fabricate that? Like, how are you actually like, it's just a line on a piece of paper, but it's a copper plane on a printed circuit board. So like, how do you do that? How do you avoid all
we don't
of
do
these
that
issues?
in undergrad.
Exactly. Because, and to a certain extent you shouldn't. You should do it like in an internship, but you have to learn the thing first before getting into all these details. So where I push back on people saying like a graduate school doesn't give you the skills that you would need, and maybe I'm just fabricating these imaginary people who push back on this, but I do think a master's really puts you in a position where like you look around and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and there's nobody who's going to help me fix this. And I think it's the same, at least in my internship, the couple of internships that I did, there was a similar experience where it was like, you can't just bother your boss all the time because he's trying to finish his deliverables with his skills.
And he's managing 4 of you.
Exactly.
4 of you.
Yeah.
You know,
so you have to find a way to find the answer. And I think the same skills get developed, at least when I was doing a master's program, and maybe like we were a little more hands-on than most people are. Like we do simulations to build the thing. Like we don't do simulations as like the final like part of the process. We're like doing it to verify that when we put it together, it should behave.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah, so we end up building things and testing them because that's the simulation is not a fair version of reality, even the best simulation.
Now, are you doing that? Are you enslaving a bunch of undergrad students to do your grunt work?
Oh, no, because I don't trust their soldering skills. But no, I mean, but there's a hierarchy to it. Like my advisor knows more than I do because he's been in it longer. He's taught the classes. He knows the fundamentals. So he has ideas that I'm getting to the point where like we battle between ideas at the PhD level.
Okay.
Because it's like I now have enough experience in my particular topic that I'm starting because by the end of your PhD, you should be the most knowledgeable on your dissertation topic, more than your advisor. Whereas the master's, your advisor should still probably know more than you do. You're just doing what they guided you to do.
Right.
That they just didn't have the time to do. So at the PhD level, you start to be able to, but it's fun because you start battling with ideas, and it's like, I don't know the answer. My advisor who's got more experience says, well, we might need to be careful about this. And then I go, oh, I see that, but we also might need to be careful about this. And he goes, no, I see that as well. So we just need to, and then that's like the battle between it. But I do think you end up developing these skills and you end up figuring out like how these things don't work and how you can actually like create solutions.
Right.
Because like at the end of the day, like a grade is a grade, but you move on.
That's true.
But like a design has to work.
Right.
It has to like
especially
work reliably.
right. And you guys are doing kind of the forefront research side that eventually private companies are going to be using everywhere.
Yeah.
And as a private company, I mean, I've got stories from a company that I used to work for that'll remain unnamed, but rhymes with Schmiestman.
Yeah. That has been named.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, okay.
Where, I personally probably did some things that were not the safest.
Right.
And
but you didn't sign
certainly, well, I was not a professional engineer, so I was not allowed to sign off on designs.
Yeah.
And then I certainly had coworkers that made mistakes. Actually, that's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
It's not that I did it on purpose.
Right.
We make mistakes that then end up being like a really big deal.
Yeah.
Like especially somewhere like a chemical company, like you got like real people's lives on the line.
And if you take that's the more important thing. So I'll say the one that's less important, I guess. But if you take a plant down, every hour is like $100K.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's a financial aspect to it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like a huge thing. There was actually, while I was there was like a huge motor that like went down for like 2 weeks. And I was a brand new engineer trying to like fix it.
Yeah.
It was like this 400 horsepower motor. I didn't know at all, DC motor at that.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was doing. I literally contacted every person I knew in the plant and they had never worked with something like that before because it was so old.
Yeah.
And it was like, I had to fix it, And when you're in situations like that, you just are trying to learn so fast, and like there's so much pressure to get it back up and running that there's a lot of mistakes that could potentially happen.
Right.
Yeah. And even when it like finally went back like fixed and like installed, like I was glad that it all worked fine. It worked great. But part of me was like, yo, no one really checked me on this, they've got so much confidence in like what I've just done, and I'm like,
fine.
And I'm like, I don't know.
I know my work.
Check me. So yeah, it was. I don't know. It is, to your point. There are real consequences to what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think like maybe like for like the master's perspective or like master's into the PhD like graduate school perspective, you start to learn that as well.
Yeah,
because I've designed boards that I was doing on one particular component, I did mils instead of millimeters. So mils like a thousandth of an inch.
Yeah, got
I was doing mils instead of millimeters. So we got them back.
An inch, you said?
Yeah, I think it's it might be a hundredth of an inch. Hundredth of an inch. Versus millimeter like spacing. So a millimeter is like a lot bigger. It's like 25 times bigger, I think. Whichever one, it needed to be bigger. I made it smaller.
Yeah.
And instead of them being like this big, they were like that big, which obviously didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So I completely like those PCBs are just paperweights now. They serve no purpose whatsoever.
Right.
Because they can't. So I had to like redo the thing. So now, like there's certain like tricks that you pick up where you're like, I think I'm gonna do this right, but if I print it out, I can actually see it.
Right.
So now I know. And then if there's certain parts that have ever been populated before, you can like put them in an Excel spreadsheet and have a check next to them. So you know when you import them into your model, they work. And these are all things that get done at like a private like company as well. So that's where like I think the same flow, it's a similar flow. But I will say, you know, a biased opinion, the Masters gives you a little more room to fail because like you have to fix a motor right now. If it stays offline, we're going to lose $1 million. But like me, if I screw up my PCBs, my professor's like, well, that sucks. I'm out $100.
Right, let's toss it away.
And let's do it again. Yeah. So it gives you a little bit more space to like fail consistently, to get it out and start to develop like good habits to check yourself. So that's like a little bit of the pitch on the graduate side. Is it you're developing the same skills because you're learning where like the breakdown in like theory and reality is. Yeah. But it gives you an opportunity to fail in a productive manner. Right. And not cost somebody $1 million or cost yourself a job potentially, depending on how big the failure is.
Well, you know, so similar to kind of the earlier conversation we had about like undergrad into masters, I would love to know kind of your thought process because again, we talked earlier about the master's degree will get you $20K more starting off. What was your thought process at the end of your master's program, kind of delving into PhD territory?
Yeah, so that one has the COVID asterisk on it.
Oh, yeah. So I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like we graduate in 2018.
18 from undergrad.
For undergrad. Master's is 2 years.
Yeah.
So
okay. So in the middle of as COVID starting.
I defended my master's because like with the thesis, you do like a presentation saying, basically like summarizing your thesis. And you just go through, it's a 30-minute presentation. And then you get grilled by, there's like a couple of members of your committee and they ask you technical questions about what you put together.
Right.
And so I finished that the Friday before spring break started in March. And I remember I finished that. They told us like go away from campus for a week and then we'll make a decision on like what the COVID policies are because it was starting to ramp up. And they literally told us to go home and then they told us not to come back. So
not to come back meaning like
to campus. Oh. Like you'll continue your classes, but like don't come back to campus. Like period, like nobody. Ever. Undergrad. Well, I mean, for the rest of the semester at least. Right. So COVID, like I defended my master's, and then COVID shut everything down.
Right.
Or we shut everything down because of COVID. So I remember I was spending a lot of time here, and I remember I was like thinking about it because I was like, well, the master, if that hadn't happened, I was going to go on a trip like with my dad and my sister
after you graduated.
May. Right, and I was more than likely I had an internship over the summer as well. So I think looking back on it with like a little bit of like hindsight, I probably would have just done that internship. And by the end of it, probably just
taken whatever full-time offer.
Yeah. Because after I signed up, I think for the PhD program in May, kind of another is like, I would probably continue doing this. Yeah. Especially when everything slowed down that hard. It kind of like put things into perspective a little bit better. Like I think a lot of people had with COVID. But by the end of that like summer that I spent at the internship, they were like, my boss was basically saying like, if you get tired of the PhD and you don't want to go through with it, just come back and work for us.
Yeah.
So I think.
And you know what's funny? I'm actually just now realizing that your PhD has only been 3 years.
Yeah, it'll be 3 years in the fall.
For whatever reason, it's probably just because you've been at Alabama for so long. In my head, I was like, damn, dude, you've been in this PhD for fucking ever.
Yeah.
Like, you've been doing this for like 5 years.
Yeah.
But it's because you did the master's in between.
Exactly.
Okay.
And at the time, I didn't know I was going to do the PhD.
Right.
I thought, like a lot of people, I think, I was just going to do the master's and just be done with it.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, I like this work. It's a rich field. Like, it's a field where like not a lot of people publish on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we have like the tools to do things where I could actually like I could have like a topic and know that I could finish in a given timeline.
Yeah.
You always think you're going to finish faster than you like actually do.
At the PhD level, is there a little bit of this, call it political game of like your professor wants you to stay as long as possible because they're getting a lot of really high quality work out of you versus you're trying to leave because you want to start the next chapter of your life, you want to get your degree,
right?
And like, do what's next.
Yeah.
So is there a little bit of this game of like, okay, well, they're the ones that sign off on you as a student, to be like, yes, this person's ready to leave, but could they hypothetically hold you back a little bit to get a little extra work out of you?
They could. My experiences, though, because there's a few more like factors that go on with that aren't as well seen, and like one is like professors have to graduate students at a certain rate as well.
Oh,
like
interesting.
There's the common
like they have to
if you want to get tenure. Like, if you want to get tenure, you basically have to graduate a PhD student. And, like, if you're not doing that, then you have to have a really good reason. Like, you're either bringing in a ton of money or you're an outstanding teacher, and even that isn't going to get you that far. But there are certain, like, I think the way that I would summarize it is that can happen.
Yeah.
But the relationship that, like, it's almost like a parental relationship with your advisor. It's like having that relationship is almost more important than like the work that you're doing, because you have to be able to like have conversations. Because I know like with my advisor, the thing that we just have to do, we live from like deadline to deadline a lot of times on like a lot of like the contract deliverables that we have with like private companies that basically pay for my tuition.
Yeah. And
with that, we just live from like one deadline to the next. So if you're not upfront with your expectations, he's thinking about hitting the deliverable so that he can get the money to pay us and himself. So it's not that he's being negligent. It's that he's just like, you almost have to be the squeaky wheel and be like, I want to graduate by this point.
Okay.
Do you agree with that timeline? And then he'll say, I either do agree with it or no, I don't. So like with my situation, it's not like a hard, fast rule, but my advisor likes us to have 3 journal articles that you like publish before you graduate.
Got it.
So if you're trying to like rush your graduation at the end,
so that means you currently are triple published.
Not yet, because I'm not done yet.
Okay.
So I have one. I'm working on the second one, and then the third one is basically my dissertation research.
Got it.
And he's a little lenient, like in the sense of that you don't have to like defend and have all 3 of them in your bag. Like you can defend and have like 2 of them in your bag, and you're writing the third one.
Yep.
Or you're writing the last 2,
and
it's like you've already submitted the second one, you're looking for feedback, like the peer review feedback. So like with that, you have to hit those 3, like journal articles before he lets you go. So you can't just like speed run it at the end because there's the peer review process, and he has to edit the papers that like you're writing. So what I've kind of learned from like previous experiences with some of the other guys in the lab is like you just have to like get in front of it, and you just have to be like open with it, the same way you would be with like a manager if you had like complaints about like salary things or something like that. You would just like go to them and say like, or like with my advisor, I've tried to do it like every like semester basically of like, this is the timeline that I want to do. Do you agree with it? Yeah. And he says either no, because we need to do more testing, or we need to figure out this problem, or we need to solve this first, or like, yes, we just might need to like buckle down during this time, or we need to see what these results look like. But if that goes well, then yes.
It almost sounds like more of being a professor is like, mentoring your master's and graduate or master's and PhD students than doing like undergrad, like teaching a class or whatever.
100%. Yeah. I mean,
and I never realized that as an undergrad student. I was always like, why are these professors like not doing anything? They're having their graduate students
never available.
Their grad students are like grading all the papers. They're like doing everything.
Yeah.
But okay, it's because they're like editing your papers and like they're like,
and they're trying to go get money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
grants and funding.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I would end up trying to be a professor, mostly because of like the admin part of it, where it's like you have, first of all, you have to get grad students. Yeah. That's not an easy ask.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you think you have a PhD student and they're just going to stay for the master's, or sometimes you think you have a master's student and they just stop after undergrad research and they get a good job offer and they honestly for a good reason leave. Yeah. So I think it's like at best half your time is spent teaching.
Yep.
At most, half their time is spent teaching. Most of their time is probably like mentoring their like grad students, because a master student needs more attention than a PhD student does. I could basically not talk to my professor for like a couple of months and probably be fine.
Yeah.
Because I know what I need to do to get my job done. And it's just good to talk to him so that he can catch some of my mistakes early. But a master student can't go 2 months without talking. Like they're just going to sit and they're just not going to make progress because they're just going to look at a problem and not be able to like solve it. So a master student needs like more constant attention, or at least more constant guidance.
Yep.
So yeah, it's the mentoring of that, and it's going out and getting money. A lot of the times it's like you have to get grants because you have to like pay for like all of like your lab equipment and like your graduate students and things.
Right.
So if you get mad at your professor for not paying enough attention to you, it's because they're doing other things.
Yeah.
That the university, quite frankly, cares more about than the teaching.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So, okay, so you decide to go the PhD route.
Right.
And was that another sit-down conversation with your dad, or was that more so, a factor of COVID? You were just like, the jobs aren't out there.
Yeah.
I just have to do this.
I think COVID made me realize what COVID made me realize in like the graduate school side of things was that I was comfortable, yet I felt challenged.
Yep.
So for me, and then in my mind, I was thinking like, oh, I could do it in like 3 years, which I guess wasn't too far off the mark. But I was like, another 3 years, I don't know when this is going to clear up.
True.
Like, I mean, if I do this for another year, I'm not really losing. It's almost like I'm losing less time than I normally would. Because everybody else is kind of just like staying at home. Like nobody else is doing anything.
I know what you mean. Yeah. I know what you mean.
So for me, it was like I'm almost getting years back when like if like you guys like you're out like you're working and you're like starting to do things that like I'm envious of, which is like you're starting to go on to like vacations. You're like starting to settle down with like a life, and you're making good money.
Yeah.
So like, but with COVID, it's like everything like shuts it down. So I felt like I was getting almost time back.
Yeah.
And so I just realized I was like, I'm comfortable what I'm doing and I feel challenged. I'm not really, I don't have a job offer just sitting around somewhere. So I'd have to go through that process all again, or I could just keep doing what I've been doing for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I could just get another degree.
What would you say to the people that would argue that you're staying in your comfort zone and not going out into like, the unknown, like not challenging yourself?
Right. What would I say?
Yeah, what would you say to them? You got haters. I want you to look at the camera right now and be like, fuck you.
That's what I would say. No, I mean, it was, so the comfort was less the work, more the lifestyle.
Okay.
So the work has been and will forever always be challenging. Like the stuff that not to like toot a horn or anything, but like the stuff that I do, or at least for me personally, it's always challenged me.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
I can't be stagnant. When I'm stagnant, I die. When I come back for like vacations, after like the third or fourth day, I like almost want to work again.
Yeah.
And I can't do the same repetitive task all the time. It gets too, I just start hating it.
Yeah.
So the work has always been challenging. And like, yeah, what we've ended up doing is like, it's always, I'm just now starting to feel like a little bit of like competency with it. But it was more the lifestyle of, and I'll get back to like the dad thing. It was more the lifestyle of like, this is something that I've enjoyed doing. Like, I don't know what like work life looked like, basically. I mean, I kind of did with internships, but that's not
fair, but it's not
true. Yeah. And you're not like in your apartment, in your house, like doing things like that.
And I've found out recently that like people really baby interns. Well, At least in my experience, people have really babied interns. You really don't know until you're doing it every day.
Right. And I mean, so with my lifestyle, it was like I can do this, like I'm getting, like I have like my tuition covered, and I'm getting like a stipend as well.
Yeah.
So like I can do
it's like a good lifestyle. They're paying you.
Yeah. Like
free, right?
Yeah.
Free master's, free PhD.
Yeah, I'm like I have like a salary. It's not much, but I have a salary, and they're covering
on top
my
of
tuition. Yeah. So I'm not paying for this. I'm getting paid to do it.
Right.
I am challenged by it, and it's a lifestyle that for the time being it like is suitable for me. And I didn't know if I wanted.
You love that college party boy lifestyle.
More than just like relax and not have to like worry, like almost like not be an adult.
There's different stressors that come with this next not in college lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. So it was more the not challenging myself wasn't from the academic side. It wasn't from like the work side.
Yep.
That's always been challenging. It was more of like realizing like what like lifestyle I wanted, and graduate school has given me like the opportunity to actually like sit with myself and like figure out like what I would want.
Yeah.
Whereas like I know like the pressures of like reality start to blur that a little bit, where you almost like don't have time to think about things.
Yeah.
So I felt like I became like more of like a human being like in graduate school, because you have a lot more time to like think about.
No, that makes sense. And I think the reality of this kind of post-COVID world that we live in is that everyone, I complain about it a lot because of my previous job experience.
Yeah.
But I think everyone feels so much more connected to their job. Like even after COVID, like people have gone back to the office, but we've realized like remote work is so easy. So everyone across every industry is taking their laptops home. Yeah. They're logging in at 7, 8 o'clock to, answer emails or like just be available if they're needed, which is not something we used to do before COVID, I don't think.
No, and it's gotten rid of some of, I mean, I know some people don't really like the, we'll call it hybrid, if not fully like remote stuff. I disagree with them. Those people, I would say, fuck you. But I mean, it's almost like given an opportunity to be more productive over a more comfortable timeline, because like we're in jobs that are like maybe where like you need to like be like on a campus of some sort to be able to do the job that you need to do. But like for some people, it seems to me like if you're in like more of like an administrative role, or like where you have to do a lot of like emails or like meetings and things like that, it's a lot nicer to stay at home. Yeah. And you don't have to make the commute. Yep. Like you're just answering emails and you're like in online meetings. Right. So you can do that anywhere. And you can do it at your own pace. So you can like make your own lunch, you can do your own lunch, like you become like more productive both like at work and like in like your own life. Right. And I even have that. Like if I know if I go to campus I get distracted by like other people's problems as well as my own. So I know like if I need to just put in like a full day's like work and I can do it remotely, I do it remotely. Right. And I'm
like
able
you prefer to.
Right. And I can just kind of like if I need to go get groceries, I can do that whenever I want to. And then be thinking about it and then come back and finish it.
And I do think that's like the biggest like plus side of remote work, because it's like if at 11 a.m. you need to go run an errand or do something, it's like that's fine because I'm going to come back at whatever time and I'm still going to work till like 6, 7, 8 o'clock. Yeah. So it's like those maybe 2 hours that I missed in the middle of the day, I'm still making up. Like as long as the work is there, I'm going to get the work done. Yeah. Yeah. It's just now I have the flexibility to go get my hair cut while the barber's still open on a Tuesday. Right. So I think things like that have made like remote work a lot more like, I don't know. It's a lot easier, a lot more flexible for the employee. Yeah. Now, I know there's like a ton of pushback from like the employer standpoint of like they want you in the office. Yeah. I don't know. But I want to go back to the PhD question. You went from undergrad directly into master's. You had that conversation. PhD, you didn't, this was more so a conversation of yourself of like you had COVID happen, and it was more of like a what is the opportunity? I feel good at what I'm doing right now.
Lifestyle.
Yeah, lifestyle's great. Yeah, you went into it. Now you're kind of upcoming the end of your PhD. Yeah, right.
By the end of the year,
hopefully by the end of the year, you'll be a doctor. You'll be Dr. Helton. Yeah. which would be crazy.
Yeah, I don't want to think about it.
I think you should put Dr. Helton on everything.
On everything I own.
You know,
Yeah,
business
my house.
cards. Yeah. Dr. Helton on the house.
Yeah.
You get it imprinted on your shoes. Every
Yeah.
polo that you own.
Yeah.
Just Dr. Helton.
Yeah.
I think you should do that.
I could be Dr. J.
Whoa.
You know, with
like the rapper.
Or like I could with the first name if I wanted to. Should, but yeah.
Is there any sort of like apprehension of like or nervousness about like, oh, I have been doing school, well, not school, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Research at the University of Alabama, plus like taking classes for the last almost 10 years of my life, which when you think about it is like almost just as long as like how long we were in like
high school.
Grade school.
Yeah. All the way through high school, yeah.
So is there a little bit of nervousness there about like, oh, I'm about to enter the workforce as a 27-year-old?
Yeah.
Anything you're scared about? Any fears?
No, I mean,
what's your thought process?
I think at this point, from what I've been able to observe from the people who have come before me, is that you almost spend so much time in it that you're just so ready to be done with it that, like, for me, it's more of like I just need to do this. I need to do this one thing so I can do this one thing so I can write my dissertation so I can get out of here so I can start my life. Kind of deal. And I think it's like it's somewhat in the conversation that we had with like the master's where you can still like develop a lot of skills. The PhD, you're still developing skills. But the thing that's been really nice since I did like in the PhD, you have like qualifying exams. And so ever since I've like done that and like passed my candidacy, a lot of like the feeling that I've had is just like almost a sense of like competency where the smartest people I've ever been around are now like I'm having just conversations with them from like a technical perspective. And you know, my advisor's saying you need to be careful about this, and I'm saying I don't know if we need to be as careful about that because of this and this. And he goes, no, I see that, but we still need to do this. And so it's like a genuine like intellectual exchange. Whereas like previously it was like him telling me, don't do that, do this. And so over that like amount of time, I have felt more of a competency in my own abilities after it. So I don't have as much and the job that I will be like going into, I basically do a lot of that work like at Alabama now because they're like they're somebody that we have like contracts with, that we have deliverables with. So I think like I know the job, I know like the work, and I've now, like, over the course of, like, 5 years, developed a level of competency with it. And not only just, like, the natural skills, but, like, how I feel about when I do the job. That when, like, so it's not as much an apprehension about, like, what's to come. It's more of just, like, an eagerness to get past it. Like, I can see what I need to do to finish. And I just need to do that so that I can get to like the next thing. So it's more of an eagerness than it is apprehension, and that has been developed over many failures and many conversations over the last 5 years. And really it's been heightened since I finished my candidacy in May, when I had to finish like written qualifying exams and I had to do like a presentation defending my work. Like after that, it just became still a lot of work to be done, but like I feel like I can just have conversations with anybody at any technical level. Because I've had to do this for so many years. And so now it's more of just an eagerness of like getting on to the next life that exists past this.
So, I mean, I guess last question I'll ask you, in terms of the next 6 months of your life between now and the graduating, officially becoming Dr. Helton, what is it you still have to do? What is it you want to accomplish, both personally, both academically, before you get to that point?
I mean, from an academic standpoint, I still have to, like, a lot of it still in, like, the theoretical stage. So before I came here, I finished up, like, a set of, like, board designs. So those have been ordered. They should get in next week. I should be able to populate them and test them over the next following couple of weeks. So really, from like an academic perspective, it's just getting the testing done, and being able to compare the theory to the reality, see what we're missing, see what we got right, and start to develop a clear picture to be able to write about it. So from an academic perspective, it's really just getting the boards, running the test, finishing the work. From a personal perspective, not as much. From a personal perspective, it's about like trying to figure out like maybe like what the next life is. Like
you want to get married, get a girlfriend
in the next 6 months,
have a baby.
No, yeah, hold on. One of those is not physically possible. No, that is like the next thing though, because like I've been so like school focused and to a certain extent like career focused.
Yep.
In just finishing up the PhD and then getting to the next thing. That like that's probably like that. I mean that's more.
It's sat on the back burner for a little bit.
But then it provides me with the first like stable opportunity to even like go after that. Because I mean when you're at every stage, I didn't know I was going to the next one.
Yep.
So like I mean trying to like settle down.
Yeah.
There is no like down. There's no place to settle
right.
down. So that I look forward to that.
Yeah.
And I look forward to like creating whatever environment I can like actually work with that
for sure.
And settling down into like an area where I'd want to live in whatever city that I'm going to end up going to. So I look forward to that. But from a personal perspective, I'm just trying to get done. I'm just trying to finish it up. I can see the finish line. I want to get it done and get the sheet of paper and be done with it.
Yeah.
And start making a little bit more than what I make now.
I feel you, man.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on almost being done.
Almost.
Being Dr. Jared Helton.
Almost.
Thank you guys for watching the very first episode of the Rome's Room podcast. You can get us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon's got one, I'm sure. Castbox, I think, is one. Podcastareus.com. I don't know if that's one, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe. We can make it.
Yeah. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel if you like this. We're going to be interviewing a bunch more people. Jared might come back for more episodes.
Maybe.
Hopefully.
Hopefully
the next one.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see.
Maybe it'll be Jared every single
time.
As co-host Jared.
Yeah.
Until he becomes Dr. Co-host Jared.
Until he'll become Dr. Helton. Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye. No peace, because this is a new format.
Yeah.
No peace.
I was just going to flip them off.
No, don't do that.
No, don't do that.
Okay. All right, bye.